communities who rely on the land to survive. Nick Harper reports from Anchorage.
In rural Alaska, dog sledding is still a part of everyday life. Mayum Osma, the only Vietnamese musher in the state, moved to the US about a decade ago, and sledding has taken some getting used to.
At first I'm very scared and very nervous. I crashed a lot, but after that I'm very confident. I feel so free. You run a dog, you don't care about anything else, just a dog and you.
Her husband Dean became an overnight celebrity when he won the annual Iditarod in 1984, a grueling 1,500-kilometre solo sledding journey in minus 50 Celsius temperatures. He now runs sledding tours and leases his dogs to other teams. But the race route has been changed several times in recent years, as warmer weather has meant not enough snow on the ground, putting the sport and Dean's livelihood in jeopardy.
Well, you don't want to keep having races that have an asterisk behind them. You would like to have it just be a real Iditarod on the original route. We don't have ourselves don't have much control over that, so we're just all hoping that it remains the same and stays a good quality race.
Rural, often native communities are the hardest hit in the state. The wild fish they rely on for food is dying off in warmer waters.
It's all connected. So when you have, say, the entire Yukon River watershed changing, where water temperatures, for example, are rising, that impacts, for example, the salmon throughout the entire watershed, over 1,000 plus miles from the Yukon River Delta all the way up over into Canada.
Just an hour outside of the state's largest city, Anchorage, is one of the most visible signs of creeping change.
100 years ago, the Portage Glacier was right here on the very spot where I'm standing. In the 1980s, when they built this visitors centre, it had receded, but you could still see it. Today, you can't see it. It's receded even further and is now about 4 kilometres away around the bend in that valley.
Alaska has more glaciers than any other US state, but some studies suggest they're melting 100 times quicker than previously thought. Rising temperatures are also pushing wildlife further north in search of colder areas. Nicole Schmidt from the Alaska Wildlife Alliance says preserving wildlife is hard in a state where the biggest revenue earner remains oil and gas.
I think the time for us to keep our head in the sand and pretend that things are going along as normal has well passed, and so that's something we're really working on. It depends on what level you're looking at, but the state as a whole, I mean, our governor does not take in a really strong stance on climate change, and we have yet to see how the Biden administration incorporates their plans for climate change in Alaska.
The state is trying to balance the short-term needs of Alaskans with the long-term needs of Alaska, with climate change advocates warning now is no longer the time to just go with the flow. Nick Harper, CNA, Alaska.
The maiden voyage of a new British aircraft carrier aims to show its allies that post-Brexit Britain is ready to defend Western interests. The UK is also eager to see China respect international rules. This according to Commodore Steve Morehouse, who is captain of the aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth.
The UK's new $4.2 billion aircraft carrier is underway on its maiden voyage, an 8-month tour that will cross through the South China Sea and in doing so send a clear signal to Beijing. Fighter jets took off from the deck of the HMS Queen Elizabeth this week in the Mediterranean as part of NATO exercises. Watching the drills was NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg himself.
It sends a message of NATO's resolve and our capability and willingness to defend all allies against any threat. And it also sends a message of how NATO allies can operate together.
China claims 90% of the South China Sea, although several regional countries contest the boundaries, and the US has regularly sent warships through the area. Britain was the main battlefield ally of the US in Iraq and Afghanistan, and alongside France, the principal military power in the European Union. But its 2016 vote to leave the EU raised questions about its global role. London announced its biggest military spending increase since the Cold War late last year, partly in response to those concerns.
It shows that we're a global navy and wanting to be back out there. We'll be operating with the United States, but also regional partners, Singapore, Japan, Republic of Korea, other ASEAN nations. Will not only be exercising militarily, but also supporting the government's wider objectives in the region. I mean, the economies out there are growing. It's an increasingly important part of the world. So hopefully the aim for us is this deployment will be the first of a more persistent presence for the United Kingdom in that region.
A much-awaited reunion episode of popular sitcom Friends has left many Chinese fans furious after celebrity guests were cut from some scenes. They include singers Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber and Korean boy band BTS. The missing artists have all caused controversy in China. Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber have been banned from performing there. Last year, BTS angered the Chinese Communist Party for its remarks about the Korean War. The local version, streamed on Chinese video platforms, also removed all references to the LGBT community. The episode was several minutes shorter than the show released on HBO Max on Thursday. The sitcom about 6 white New Yorkers is extremely popular among Chinese millennials. Many took to social media to vent their frustration, saying they've been looking forward to watching the Friends reunion for weeks. Some questioned why Chinese censors can't just let them enjoy a good sitcom. And the most magical place in the Big Apple is set to open next week. The world's only official Harry Potter flagship store is gearing up to welcome fans in New York. Dumbledore's Griffin, Fawkes the Phoenix, and more than 50 wands are on display in the 21,000-square-foot shop. It also has props from the films and the largest collection of Harry Potter merchandise. Author J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter novels about a boy wizard have sold more than 500 million copies worldwide. It's also been made into blockbuster movies. Executives behind the flagship store say this is the right time to bring in some magic.
Yeah, it's been a really tough year in a lot of people's lives. We have a giant Fawkes the Phoenix hanging over our entrance at 5th Avenue, and I sometimes see that as a bit of a sign for the store, for a phoenix from the flames. So it's really exciting to be opening this store now. We think it's the right time to do so.
And that's Asia Now for this hour. Headlines anytime at cna.asia. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, so you can find us there. Thanks for watching.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Myanmar opening its doors to the world, but still much work is needed. The journey hasn't been easy, with pressure from within and without. Twists and turns line the way, but even when it's down, this country never stops trying. This is a country that can bank on its people. People who have the power to chart Myanmar's path. And People who have stories to tell the world.